Welcome back, everybody, to the Fantasy Hockey Hacks podcast, or the YouTube channel if you're watching it on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter. I'm Devin Davidson, your host. With me, as always, Bruce Gunther and Tyler Holman making an appearance back again. Good to see you.
Good to be here. What the hell am I doing on the bottom?
I don't know. Do you want me to switch you again? I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
Good. Yeah, we're good.
Just to let everybody know, we are a proud member of the Hockey Podcast Network and the official podcast of Left Wing Lock, your number one source for fantasy hockey intelligence. Tonight, we're going to do, these episodes right now with the fantasy hockey season complete are going to be a little bit more relaxed, a little more conversational, and we're probably just going to be all over the place. But we're going to talk about the Stanley Cup Playoffs. We're going to talk about the Western Conference Final, which is now concluded. We'll talk about the Eastern Conference Final, talk about some DFS stuff, and maybe a little bit, just a sprinkle of some sports betting. But I think everyone's probably had their fill with all the commercials we've seen on Sportsnet. So I'm not sure what else to say.
You know what's bad when it's bad when it's even annoying for me.
Yeah, when Tyler's had his fill, it's like, Jesus, okay, move on. I don't know. No, I won't. Let's start the show out on a, well, I was going to say positive note, but it's not positive. We're just going to jump right into John's list here. John is not with us tonight, but we're going to take over his segment. So if you've been listening to our podcast for a while, you have undoubtedly heard John's list, and it's basically John's shit list of players, past and present. And sometimes it's just current events or topical things. So tonight, it's not any particular player, but we are giving, we're putting Sportsnet and the Score on our shit list. So as lifelong Oilers fans, I don't think any of us were particularly impressed with what we saw. There was a ton of backlash online. I actually, for a live stream, Bruce, I included that link. David Staples from the Edmonton Journal had actually done a whole write-up on the situation, and he included the original posts in there that have now been deleted by Sportsnet and the Score. So obviously you know how the world of the internet works. People are going to take screenshots, and it doesn't disappear. So if you want to see those, it's in our live stream video from earlier today, and I will include it in our blog post for this episode as well. So anyway, long story short, Sportsnet and the Score, they effed up royally. And Tyler, I'd like your take on it. We haven't had you on for a couple weeks, so what was your, as soon as you saw it, what went through your head?
I was surprised. I was shocked that I thought it was somebody that just kind of makes GIFs and threw it on there. But when I actually opened it and it was from a major sports network, impressive would be one word to use for it. I thought it was complete garbage. And that's not just being a homer. That's like if that was any team.
Yeah.
The funny part is that they are based in Toronto, and I didn't see any of those going around when the Leafs lost in the first round, which is funny. What I'd like to see is the Oilers social media team putting that out there when the Leafs lose in the first round next year too.
Sure. Yeah.
And see how people like that. I think it's crap though. Like it seemed very amateur, kind of pathetic. So
pathetic's probably the best word to use, Tyler. Honestly,
for sure.
I've got lots of other words.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. I was fuming last night. I was fuming at work today. You can ask John next time you see him. I was pissed. It was just like, okay, so the parent company of the broadcast rights holder, their name is on our building in Edmonton.
For $6 million a year.
And so for you to go online and troll the Edmonton Oilers after losing the Western Conference Final, after your shitty team in Toronto lost out in the first round. And I don't care if it was to Tampa Bay or not. They lost in the first round. They haven't been out of the first round in like 10 years, whatever it's been. Longer, actually, I think. And they're going to sit there and troll us. And same with Calgary. Like, just to your point earlier, nothing for Calgary when they lost out. So
it's a Canadian team. It was the last Canadian team.
Yeah.
These sports networks are supposed to be based in Canada.
Like, exactly. I could understand if TNT had done that or if ESPN had done it, right? But they wouldn't because they're actually professional networks. So, maybe they would have. I don't know. But Bruce, what was your take? Because we touched on it a bit today, I guess. But
I was surprised when I didn't see the Sportsnet one until today, but I saw the Score one, and I was like, Oh, okay, yeah, they need the clicks, so they need something to draw some attention to their website because they're a distant third behind everybody else. Like, I don't even know. I didn't even think they were still around anymore. So I guess they needed the clicks, right? But to see the Sportsnet one surprised me because yeah, it's rights holder and like they how many Oilers games do they show every year on Sportsnet? And yeah, the Leafs flame out epically in the first round again, and it's nothing, right? You get the standard thing, and the Oilers do it, and so it just shows how much the Toronto media is envious of the Edmonton Oilers that they're willing to go to that lengths to do that. It just shows that there's envy out there, and they're envious of Connor and Leon, these guys coming out and making it to the conference finals when their team once again comes up short when it comes to the first round of the playoffs.
I think the worst part too is that it's without even thinking. Like they obviously didn't like think what that would look like. They thought that it would be funny.
Yeah.
And to put that out there, to be so biased to not even realize how shitty of a take that is and still put it out there and think that they were doing something that was funny or that people would like just shows like subconsciously what people base there think of everywhere else other than there.
Yeah. Just arrogant, right? Complete arrogance. And then, like, I read some of the comments right away, and people were like, "Well, I'm canceling my subscription. I'm deleting the app, whatever." The problem for me, like, and I think like most people,
it's actually the best app out there.
But yeah, so how do you delete Sportsnet, right? Because where are you going to stream your hockey if you're not watching cable, right? So, you know, I'm tempted to keep my cable and just give them the middle finger, but I'm still paying for Sportsnet, so it doesn't really matter. But I didn't like it at all. So they are on the list this week. I'm sure John would approve.
Most likely.
All right. We'll move on from that. I could probably rant a little longer, but I won't. Let's move on to Fantasy Lock of the Week from May 30th to June 7th, presented by Left Wing Lock. I did this a few days ago. I've got Mika Zibanejad here as Lock of the Week. He's tied with teammate Adam Fox for the scoring lead this week. This is a few days ago. Like I said, 6 points, 2 goals, 1 game winner, +5, 11 shots on goal, 66% power play share. On Friday, this is in Game 2, Zibanejad extended his franchise playoff record home goal streak to 6 games. Only 3 players in NHL history have recorded a longer such run in a playoff year. So Guy Lafleur, 8 games in 1979. Paul Coffey was 7 games in 1985. And Reggie Leach was 7 games in 1976. So yeah, he's been phenomenal this entire playoffs for the New York Rangers. I think he's third in playoff scoring behind Connor and Leon. So he was my fantasy lock of the week. And then, of course, the honorable mention goes to Igor Shesterkin. And this was after, this week he was 3-0-0. That was going back to the previous round. 2 goals against average, a .945 save percentage, a 5.72 goals saved above expected. He extended his franchise playoff record at home, or his winning streak at home, to 8 games, the longest in the NHL since 2013. Jonathan Quick was the last goaltender to do that. And then he stood on his head here too. He had, was it 49 saves, Bruce, in that last game?
I think so, yes.
In a losing effort. So he's just been incredible. I think, like, Tyler, where would the New York Rangers be in this playoff, in this postseason without Shesterkin?
Sure, gone in the second round at the latest.
Yeah.
He's been incredible.
All right, so there you have it. That's Fantasy Lock of the Week. I am now going to pass it over to my co-host, Bruce Gunther, to do headlines and hot streaks with the Hacks. Take it away, Bruce.
Oh, you want me to go now?
Well, if you're ready, you got your notes there. You're good to go.
All right. So yeah, this one goes a little bit back here. So started off with we're back to the previous series. So the end of season media availability. Jordan Binnington admitted to throwing the water bottle at Nazem Kadri during his post game interview, and then I put, "Yeah, news is really slow this week." If that was the big news of the day, but he did say he saw an opportunity and he threw a water bottle at him. He didn't hit him with it; it landed short. But while he was on national TV, he chucks a water bottle at him. So.
But is anyone surprised that Jordan Binnington did that? Like, this is a guy that's swung his stick about 18 times at players. So
I was more surprised it was an empty water bottle. I figured he would have tossed a full one at him just to make sure he got there. Like,
That would have been smart. He's one of the like biggest, oldest babies I've ever seen. It's like a weird goalie thing. I don't know. He's a giant baby though.
So we're not trading for him in the offseason, Tyler?
Nah. He can stay. But I mean, Mike Smith's not much less of a baby anyway. So
Yeah, a younger Mike Smith. There you go.
don't get me started.
Big Smith.
Well, we'll talk about that a little bit here later. I do want your thoughts on that, Tyler.
I'm just gonna mute myself.
Oh, the Montreal Canadiens removed the interim tag from Marty St. Louis. He signed a 3-year contract extension to remain coach of the Habs. So good to see how much Cole Caulfield improves again next year with Marty behind the bench.
That'll be good.
I think so. In non-fantasy news, Gatorade announced previous Wednesday that it will not be renewing its contract with the NHL. They will be now focusing on women's sports and college sports.
Not totally surprising. College sports is big in the U.S., right? So I guess
huge.
I think too, if you think about Gatorade, like you kind of think about the NHL, they've already got that. Like nobody's gonna come in there and be the new face of it. Like you're always, I think, at this point, gonna think of that. Women's hockey or women's sports and college sports were probably like the next thing that wasn't quite as big. So it's smart idea.
The biggest thing I remember from sponsorships for Gatorade and stuff like that was when the cameras caught Zdeno Chara chugging a Coke on the bench during the playoffs. Then they had to release a statement because Pepsi was the official sponsor of the NHL.
Oh, geez, of course.
So they had to put out a whole big statement because Chara was caught chugging a Coke on the bench and not a Pepsi.
These things.
I love that. We don't know what Freddie Andersen's injury was that kept him out of the playoffs. He had an MCL tear. However, he was close to being able to return when the Hurricanes bowed out of the playoffs. So if they would have lasted to this round, we might have seen Freddie Andersen back.
Which, Bruce, talking about that, I don't know it would have made all that much difference, honestly. I think Ranta was actually really good for the Hurricanes in that series.
No, he did well in Andersen's absence, but I think it might have helped a little bit, especially maybe not so much at the home games, but on the away games. Give him a little more stability back there because Ranta seemed to be a little shaky on the away games.
The whole team was a little shaky, though.
That's true. But if you get a couple of saves, right, it might have turned a game or two around for him too. So,
yep, for sure.
Let's see. Anze Kopitar of the LA Kings won the Marc Messier NHL Leadership Award. The award goes to the player who exemplifies great leadership on and off the ice.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got nothing to say there.
Yeah, nothing to add. Last Thursday, the NHL announced that Darryl Sutter had won the Jack Adams Trophy for Coach of the Year. I think that was pretty well deserved considering where the Flames went to where they ended up this year. Even though they bowed out against the Oilers, that's a hell of an improvement.
You just said where the Flames ended up. I was going to say out in the second round, but we're going to skip past that.
Oh boy. All right. Moving on. Let's see here. What we got next? Injury. Well, this is going to be a reoccurring theme here for the next few here. These the trainer's room for the Boston Bruins. So we'll start off with the Charlie McAvoy and Matt Grzelcyk are going to miss 6 and 5 months respectively after having right shoulder and left shoulder surgery. Mike Riley has also had surgery on his ankle, and he will, however, be ready for training camp. So there's a couple of big losses. They're out 5-6 months, so that puts them into November, December.
Well,
that's the first few.
We might as well talk about the rest of these guys too, Bruce. Right? So
yeah. So as we scroll down farther, where is the Patrice Bergeron one? So yeah. So Bergeron's out with had surgery on a tendon on his elbow, so he's out 10 to 12 weeks. But
Did you see the cast he was wearing?
4 months.
Did you see
No,
that?
I didn't see it.
Oh, it was pretty gnarly. Like he was all strapped up, and it looked like his elbow couldn't move. Obviously, right? If he had tendon surgery, so I mean, he's not doing anything, like you said, for the next 3 months.
Yeah, and then top it all off, they let Bruce Cassidy go as head coach of the Bruins. So the guy that comes in gets a welcome here. Your three best players are probably not going to be around till Christmas.
They're going to be a shell of themselves.
That's if Bergeron comes back, right? So
yeah.
I'm surprised they let him go too. He made the playoffs every season that he was there. I'm not really sure the idea behind it, and the fact that you're going to be missing 4 of your best players till Christmas time.
Apparently, he didn't take it very well.
I wouldn't imagine you would. Make the playoffs every year and are always contending. So
bye. Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, maybe they keep Jake DeBrusk now.
I wonder if he's going to get traded here, though. Still.
What it sounded like the coach was a big problem with him, so he's not.
Yeah, I did hear that too.
That's the case. They made the change, right?
Yeah. No, it sounded like he had some issues with lots of the younger players. So I'm guessing that would make more sense, right, Bruce? Like if they let him go after making the playoffs, the finals, or the going as far as they did.
Like every season he was there for a coach, they made the playoffs.
Yeah.
And maybe the team was just that good in spite of him too. I guess it's just possible. I don't pay attention a bunch to the Bruins, but maybe that's possible.
Well, you look what they've had the perfection line for how long? They had Krug, McAvoy. Well, obviously Krug went to St. Louis, but they had a good defense. They've had fantastic goaltending back there, so they've had a good team. But if he's not connecting with the younger players, then they're gonna have to bring some younger players in. And if they want to keep DeBrusk, that's probably a move they decided to make. They'd rather toss it's easier to throw the coach under the bus than trade DeBrusk away.
And there is a lot of guys out there too that are available, even right now before the playoffs are over and more people get fired. There's decent guys out there, so maybe it does make sense. Still surprising.
Find out in September, I guess, once they start training camp. But we'll find out probably before training camp or even the draft when they probably have a coach in place before the draft, I would think. But who knows? What else happened here? So on Friday, NHL announced that Carey Price had won the Masterton Trophy for perseverance. Price returned to action this season after having knee surgery and entering the NHL Player Assistance Program for substance abuse. I think that was pretty much a given. I don't think anyone else was going to win that other than Price, although probably Hayes from Philadelphia would have been probably more my pick than Carey Price, but
I'm with you, Bruce. I think I would have given it to Kevin Hayes. Like losing his brother and just like it was more of a tragedy for him, right? And Price dealt with some personal issues and he came back, and that's great. Like I'm happy that he's doing better, but I just for me it would have been Kevin Hayes.
Yeah, it's kind of where I would have leaned to. Not taking it away from what Price went through, but
No. Of course, I want to be respectful to what he dealt with as well. But I just losing your brother and personal issues. I mean, you don't want to compare problems, right? But
which is almost what you have to do for that trophy. It's like who had the biggest problems this season and who came back from them. Almost seems like that's who gets that particular reward.
Yeah, exactly.
Sticking with the Canadiens, Chris Weidman signed a 2-year contract extension with the Canadiens on Monday, worth $1.4 million. Also announced on Monday, Kyle Connor won the Lady Byng Trophy for sportsmanship. And then some other contract notes here. Jack Roslovic signed a 2-year, $4 million contract extension to Columbus Blue Jackets.
Seems like a reasonable contract.
Yeah, and a bit of a surprise, too, because there was reports and rumblings that they weren't very happy with his play this season. So, surprising they would do that, but maybe they're going to give him a chance.
He did have a down year, to be fair, but...
Yeah.
I think given the trade, you had to sign.
You got to do something, right?
Shorter term contract as you could.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dallas Stars signed Dennis Gurianov to a 1-year deal worth $2.9 million. They're hoping he can get back to his 20-goal scoring ways next season.
It's 1 year, so it's not the end of the world, but that seems a little bit steep given his fall off in play from last season.
Yeah. He went from 20 goals down to 11.
He was really good, right, when he had 20 goals or whatever it was 2 years ago, but...
Didn't he have like 20 goals and like 5 assists or something that season, though?
Yeah, like his production wasn't huge, but he was definitely better than he was last year, or this year.
And then the surprise one, I didn't see this coming. So Chris Driedger of the Seattle Kraken will miss the next 7 to 9 months after having surgery to replace a torn ACL that was suffered at the World Championships.
That's rough.
That's a long time.
That's going to hurt for Seattle.
Well, and if you're Seattle, you're kind of pissed because, and this is always the conversation when guys go to international play, right? Well, what if he gets hurt? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden your franchise is out. So,
well, and it was just stretching out for a save too. It wasn't like anybody ran into him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe it was coming at some point anyway. I don't know.
Could be.
Guess better now than in training camp.
Yeah. Yeah.
Last one on the list, PK Subban has won the King Clancy Memorial Trophy for making noteworthy contributions to his community. I think this is more than he's won this several times because he's always out there doing things for his community, no matter where he is.
I don't want to say anything negative, but I'm gonna. This is kind of PK Subban's, aside from the slew foot, it's his only contribution to the NHL at this point. But good for him.
But it's good. If he's going to contribute somewhere, if it can't be on the ice, it's in the community. So
yeah. Well, he's definitely done that.
So good. That's good. Congratulations to PK Subban.
That's what I meant to say. Sorry.
Yeah, there you go. All right, boys. It is that time. Bruce, thanks for doing headlines. Who's doing the ad read today? I guess I'll take this one. Yeah, Tyler's out. Tyler's out.
Tyler's out.
Okay, I can take this one. That's okay. Give me a
Tyler
second here.
The next one.
You will get the next one. All right. As a member of the Hockey Podcast Network, the Fantasy Hockey Hacks podcast is a proud partner of DraftKings. Hockey fans, the pursuit for the Stanley Cup is on, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, has an unbelievable offer for the most exciting playoffs in sports. New customers can bet $5 on any team to win and get $100 in free bets no matter what, win or lose. Looking to turn a small bet into a big payday during playoffs? With DraftKings same-game parlays, you can do just that. Create your own parlay by combining multiple bets like which team will win, how many goals will be scored, and more. It's your shot at an even bigger payout. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code THPN. Bet $5 on any NHL team to win and get $100 in free bets no matter what. That's code THPN. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See our show notes for details. We've got all the information there. If you do have any sort of gambling addiction or you need crisis counseling, there will be contact information there based on your geographic location. I should mention, Bruce, DraftKings is now available in Ontario. So, Tyler,
awesome.
What a treat.
Yeah.
All the guys from Sportsnet and the Score can place bets. That's great.
I'm looking forward to having DraftKings in Canada, though. Like I like a lot of the stuff they do with their sportsbook. Not to say that there's not some other ones. I mean, but it'd be great for us as a partner of DraftKings to have them across the country.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
definitely.
Tyler, any new news on the betting front?
I haven't placed the bet since the playoffs started. To be honest with you.
Really?
I haven't.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah.
You must have called the hotline.
I called one of those 28 hotlines that are on there. They turned me
Atta boy.
around. Look at me now.
Look at you now. Look at you now. I love it. All right, let's move along then. So we're just going to cover off some of the series here. So we're going to talk about Tampa and New York first, then we'll get into the Western Conference Final. So I guess now I just saw a note here. Palat had another game. Looks like he had was it a goal and 2 assists or something, and Tampa tied up that series. So I mean, no surprise really, I think, to anyone. And Tyler and Bruce, you guys both picked them to win the cup, did you not?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Against Edmonton, but
So you might be half right.
nothing wrong with that.
Okay, so I mean, I kind of gave there's some notes here on each of the games, but I think really the big stories for me in this series, and probably like everybody else, has been the goaltending. Igor Shesterkin has largely outplayed Andrei Vasilevsky.
Yeah, actually, there was a note here. Just was reading as a. This is from Michael Yamamoto.
Yep.
Igor Shesterkin hasn't had a save percentage below 900 since Game 4 against the Pittsburgh Penguins in round 1. That's 14 straight games, and 10 of those have been above 920.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, very impressive.
I'd still take Vasilevsky.
I did. I picked Tampa to win, so I'm all in on Vasilevsky. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it was something like he's 18-1 after a loss in the playoffs.
Yeah.
He's the guy that you want in there. I mean, he did it to the Leafs the last 2 or 3 games there. He just kind of decided he wanted to stop everything, and he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he did it to the Rangers again tonight.
And I think he's going to continue to do it. So
I mean, they're the 2 best goalies in the league right now. I don't think there's any question about that. Is there another one you put in that conversation?
no.
I don't think so.
I think people this year might say Saros, but I think it was just a good story. I don't think he's actually on that same level.
No, I would agree with that.
I don't think
Although he's been great. It's just, but yeah, it's. But I'd be curious to see what Shesterkin would look like if you placed him in Tampa.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
no disrespect to the Rangers, but I don't think they're quite on the same level as Tampa just yet.
if you were to put Shesterkin in Tampa, oh my, because right now, like the Rangers basically are relying on Shesterkin to hold them in, right? And he's incredible, right? So if you had Shesterkin in Tampa would be literally almost unstoppable.
Like, and we shouldn't discount, I guess, Adam Fox, because Adam Fox has been really good for the Rangers. But I mean, they've got Fox, they've got Trouba. Do they really have, like, who else is notable there on the blue line for the Rangers?
I mean, Lindgren's
Yeah,
your
I think
rich guys.
I think
Rich
medical
guys.
tape is the only thing holding Lindgren together in these playoffs.
He's like a rich guy's version of Russell, but
yeah, a younger Russell.
yeah.
Yeah, and then you go to Tampa, and I mean, they've got, like, Sergachev has been great for a couple years, and Hedman, obviously, and McDonough. They've got some more depth there, I think, on their blue line. So, yeah. Adam Fox has been fantastic, too. Was he up to 23 points, I think, before tonight in 20 games, which leads all defensemen in scoring, which is pretty impressive there. He's got 5 points, four shots, nine scoring chances in this series. That was before tonight. I don't know if he did anything tonight, but
Well, they only got 1 goal tonight.
it's probably not a whole lot. But he's been good. Hedl in the kid line has been pretty good for the Rangers.
Yeah, and he exited with an injury tonight's game.
How many of those goals tonight were actually scored at even strength for Tampa?
Good
Looks like-
question.
I think it was
1-2.
more tonight than it was last game because I think those are all special teams goals.
It might have been all of them, actually. I'm just looking at it. They got 1 empty netter, I guess, so it's not even strength. But there's 3 here, so it looks like, yeah, maybe 3 of those goals are even strength. Which is good because before tonight, Bruce, we were talking about this earlier. the Rangers had managed to outscore Tampa 5-5, 8-3.
Yeah, only the Rangers' goal was a power play goal.
Yeah. So there you have it. Any other thoughts, guys, on Tampa, New York?
I still think Tampa wins. I
think so too.
I think Edmonton's probably a year or two ahead of New York, which does sound surprising, but I think they are just based on their top players' ages.
Yep.
And just like Edmonton, I think even us as fans know that it wasn't time yet. The team that beat them had been bounced in the playoffs when they should have done more in the past couple of seasons. So I think New York's kind of sitting in the same spot, just a couple maybe years behind Edmonton. People weren't even really calling for them to make the playoffs and for them to be in the conference final. I mean, that's just nice for them. They're ahead of schedule, so.
Yeah.
Definitely. Most definitely.
To me, this is Tampa's.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked to see them. No, they should make the Stanley Cup final, and then, I mean, that would be a hell of a series to see. Colorado, Tampa in the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd see how well Colorado would handle defensive structure, because they haven't seen much of it in the playoffs so far.
Well, defensive structure and goaltending.
Yeah. Like they haven't run into a goaltender like Shesterkin or Vasilevsky yet.
Yeah.
Binnington was close, but
yeah,
he wasn't there for a full series either.
It'll be interesting to see. But you know what? Edmonton hung with Tampa this year, as far as I recall. So shouldn't be surprising to see Colorado do something similar, right? I mean, they've got a very deep team. They're fast. And Cale Makar. I mean, there's not a better defenseman in the league right now than Cale Makar.
No.
So, and on both sides, Kevin Bieksa was talking about that last night. He covers all areas, all three zones. He doesn't care just about offense. He's a complete defenseman.
He's such a good skater that he defends as good as he plays offense, and there's nobody else that does that.
Yeah,
no.
It's scary.
Yeah,
I
know there's lots.
And
of
he's only 23.
I know there's lots of people that have said that if he's not now, he's going to be the best defender. He is.
He is
hands down, not even close to anybody else to be able to play both sides of the puck the way he does. He's closer to the top 5 players in the league, forwards or D, than he is to just being the best defenseman.
Yeah.
But
can we all agree he's the best player on the Avs right now?
Easily.
Yeah, I would say so.
I'm taking him over McKinnon. Sorry. Okay, well let's talk about the Edmonton Colorado series, because we're kind of spilling into it anyway. So let's get into it. I'll be honest. In Game 1, it was just a mess. I think everybody was kind of like, well, let's just move on. But the thing for me in Game 1 is I felt like the Oilers were actually overwhelmed by the forecheck and the play of the Avalanche. That to me, they just seemed like, despite the score, they weren't really close. That's how I felt.
First 2 periods for sure. I think they kind of started to figure out a little bit in the third, but I mean, they were Game 1 in every series. They seemed confused. So, but this was like a whole new animal to be confused against. So,
yeah. Game 2 wasn't close, right? That one was just Colorado had their way with the Oilers, right? That was ugly. We all want to move on from that. McDavid and Draisaitl were held to a collective 4 shots on goal and 5 shot attempts in Game 2. The team had just 7 high danger scoring chances. The team, it was ugly. What was your take, Tyler, on the Landeskog hit on Yamamoto?
I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people are talking about.
Bruce and I both agree, by the way. That was kind of our take, too.
The size difference is 90% of that hit. Thing I don't like is that it was from the blind side.
Yeah.
Wasn't really necessary in the center of the ice. He wasn't really trying to separate the man from the puck. He was kind of trying to take advantage of somebody that was smaller and unsuspecting.
Yeah.
Which is the part that I don't like. But you can't really get suspended. You could probably call it head contact. I know he did make contact with his shoulder, but given his size,
Yeah.
follow through does end up in his head, and if it's the nature of the rule is making head contact, then that's a penalty. But I really don't think it was that bad. Unnecessary for sure, but that's what happens when you're my height.
And that's why we love Yamamoto.
That's right.
So for me, that was kind of the big stories in Game 2. I mean, Game 3, McDavid scores 38 seconds into the game. We think, okay, here we go. He's one of 8 players in NHL history to record 30 or more points prior to the Stanley Cup final. So I thought that was an interesting stat. Wayne Gretzky did it 4 times. Gilmore, Rick Middleton, Mary Lemieux, Barry Peterson, Mark Recchi, and Mark Messier. So in some pretty elite company there. That was cool to see. But then the Evander Kane hit just killed any momentum they had on that on the Connor McDavid goal.
Yeah.
And so Bruce, you and I have talked about it already, but Tyler, what was your assessment on that Evander Kane play?
I don't think it was any worse than any of the other clips that were all over Twitter after that. I think if you look, even when it slowed down, he didn't really follow through. Like, it wasn't an aggressive follow through on his back. But because of where it was on the ice, it's always dangerous.
Yeah.
And somebody can toe pick, can do whatever, even with just a little touch. And it's a dangerous play. It's the most frustrating part is obviously the officiating and it not being balanced across every other game, every other highlight that you can splice beside it.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was. I don't know that it was one game in the playoffs worthy, given that it was that early in the game and you already got 5 minutes. But I don't think it was. I don't think it was as bad as a lot of the other clips that were played with it. So the timing was unfortunate because that kind of changed the whole feel of the game based off of the start.
Yeah, no question it did. And Bruce, you and I think we looked at it too and went, yeah, we don't love the play because, like you said, it's in a dangerous area. So and the NHL is trying to eliminate that. But I kind of thought, a 5-minute major might have been adequate. Right, like I think I kind of agree with what you're saying. There is like maybe he didn't deserve a game in the playoffs, right? Because they're worth a lot more in the playoffs. So maybe you give him 5 and you call it. But I don't know. At the end of the day, I mean, the Oilers killed off that 5-minute major, so it didn't matter. It was just the timing. Suspension after, right? Well, yeah, and the timing too. The timing killed it.
And I don't know if anybody like in Edmonton or really around the league, mostly in Edmonton though, were that surprised or that upset about him getting a game.
Yeah.
I think everybody kind of just expected that would probably happen and nobody was really upset. The frustrating part is when you see plays in the next game where a player gets hit in the numbers. Yeah, he's turning. He's still 4 or 5 feet away from the boards and goes in there. Rantanen on, I can't remember which player it was, puts him in there. Like that's a boarding call, but you don't call that, but you call the other one. And that's the frustrating part. I think league-wide, this isn't just an Edmonton thing. This is a league-wide thing and an officiating thing.
Yeah. Well, and I said on the stream, I think the only reason why Kane got a suspension is because Kadri broke his thumb. There was an injury that took him out of the game. Had Kadri got up and came back his next shift, it would have been a $5,000 fine like the last one was from,
Or
I forget who it was that got it, but that's all it would have been then.
$2,500 for Cassian taking off what's his name's helmet in the bench. Like,
I mean, it was kind of funny actually. Like at that point,
I'd pay that. I'd just write him a check right there. I'd take the checkbook out, just write it.
Worth it. Well, because Byram flipped out when Cassian took his helmet off.
It's the best part.
Oh well, yeah, it was pretty funny. And Cassie just kind of did one of these, like he was like, "Holy, I think I poked the bear a bit." It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Ryan McLeod, I think we got to talk about how good has that kid been. Like he's taken a quantum leap from game one or his first game of this season to, playing over 20 minutes a game in the Western Conference Final and looking good doing it too, right? He scored a big goal. Yeah. Was that game 2 or 3? Oh, it would have been game 3. to tie it up late, right?
Yeah, someone had mentioned.
Go
Sorry, go ahead, Tyler.
Well, they found their third line center.
Yeah.
It's taken since trading Ryan Strome.
Decades.
Well, yeah. I mean, you probably had a second line center in Ryan Strome, but that's fine. Forever. And they drafted and developed him. But the leap that he's taken from mid-season, late in the season to conference finals is it's crazy. And you just hope that he builds off of it with having that confidence. Because you could see when he was skating with the puck from mid-season to the last game, he wasn't looking to give it off right away.
No.
He was looking to carry it. And that's something you want, especially in a center.
Sorry, go ahead, Bruce.
I was going to say there was a couple of times there when you would watch him play there I think it was one against Calgary and I think once against Colorado. I think he's making notes when he's watching McDavid make his moves because he was trying to do some of the moves McDavid does, and he didn't. There was one he didn't miss by much, and the other one I had to take a look at the number when he spun around because I thought it was McDavid on the ice, and it turns out it was McLeod because they both got 7s in their numbers. So
you took the words right out of my mouth, Bruce. That's exactly what I was going to say. Like there were times I had to do a double take. He skates so well.
I've heard that. I've heard that from a lot of people. I think he looks a lot more like Nuge when he handles the puck than he does McDavid. But that's maybe just because I think McDavid's kind of off by himself. But
he is for sure. I mean, go ahead, Bruce.
He's got some great centers to learn from, right? You got Nuge, you got Draisaitl, you got McDavid. Like that's a pretty good group of people to pick their brains and watch and practice. And if he can watch Connor make moves and he can start pulling off some of those moves too, well, that's all the better for the Oilers.
I wanted to talk quickly about Evan Bouchard and Mike Smith that play in Game 3. So first off, I'm happy to see that Bouchard has been put on Power Play 1, right? I think the last 2 or 3 games, it was great to finally see him there. That's my opinion. Are you shaking your head because he should have been there before?
Just fucking trade Barry. Just get
Yes.
Get out.
Well, they're going to have to, right? They got to move probably Barry and Cassian in the offseason here, I think, to make room if they're going to try and sign Kane.
Well, so I don't know if you heard this today, but there was a piece written on it. I think it was in The Athletic. So because of Kane's grievance, if they rule that San Jose has to pay him 50%, he can't make more than his original contract was. So if the arbitrator rules that they owe him $3.5 million, he can't sign a total contract amount above 7. So he'd be at $3.5 million with Edmonton. So you're not signing him to a 3-year, $7 million or $6 million or anything like that.
Yeah.
It does get a little bit. It gets a little bit funny though if the arbitrator rules in favor of San Jose paying his whole contract, because then he becomes property of San Jose again, and then would have to be traded.
Yes.
So the whole thing is a little bit screwed up.
Yeah.
But
So
that does make a difference in what you sign him for. The other thing is Mike Smith might retire. So
I heard that too. Yep.
I read something about that too.
There's Jason Greger, I think, was talking about that.
Yeah, it's not a lot of cap space, but it is some. But you have to, obviously, even if he wanted to come back, you still have to get a starting goalie too. And that's going to cost you.
Yeah. So, well, I guess I'm actually, let's just continue this topic because I find this interesting, right? We're kind of talking about next season and what's going to happen. Duncan Keith is the other guy, right? There's been some rumblings that he may retire in the offseason here. And Tyler, you had mentioned it. I think I saw the same clip. It was from Oilers Nation, I believe, that there is some recapture there, some cap recapture if he does decide to retire in the offseason. So that could go a long ways to them making some moves, signing a starting goaltender.
And positive cap recapture as well, where you'd actually gain cap space on top of what his actual cap hit was, which is a pretty weird thing because that doesn't happen very often.
No, so they go from it's not just the $5.5 million cap hit; it's like it was $7 or $8 million, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was something like that. I'd have to look it up again, but
so. And, some big question marks for the Oilers. I think they're going to be busy this offseason. And I was listening to Friedman and Merrick today too, and they said that Freeman said he thinks the Oilers are going to be like a 7, for watchability in the offseason, how busy they're going to be. He thinks they're going to be making a lot of moves, and just because of how far they went this year, they kind of got a taste of it. They're going to want to do some more next year. So
Definitely.
Should be interesting there. But earlier I was going to make that point about Bouchard and Smith. So Bouchard rings one off the post, right? The rebound comes out. Comfer skates in. He kind of wasn't great positioning.
Such a bad goal. He didn't even know it went in.
But Mike Smith, yes. Mike Smith has to make that save.
Has to. Especially at that time.
It's 2-2. You got to make that save.
You can't pass the puck to nobody when you had a safe play behind the net to a guy that was standing there, and you gave it away, and you give up the goal, and then you're mad that somebody crashed the crease and you gave it up when you didn't have to make that play, which I know isn't the play you're talking about, but there's a million that we could talk about.
There are many, and there's a lot of plays we could talk about. And I'm not going to blame Mike Smith for the Oilers losing. Right, they got swept for a number of different reasons, but there were key moments in that series where if he had made the save that he should have, you don't know, right? Like if he makes that save on Comfer, maybe they get one right back, right? Or
I think it's as simple as this. You look at Francouz. He's not good, but look at the saves that he made. He's playing obviously with Colorado, which is a better team. We all understand that. We all know that.
Yeah.
But look at the saves that he made on McDavid, on the power play, on different guys where there was no reason for him to make the save. And instead you have Mike Smith at the other end who makes one good save and then lets 2 bad ones in. He makes one good breakout pass that leads to nothing more oftentimes than not.
Right. And
then more often than that, he gives the puck to the other team and lets in a goal and that gets angry. What Edmonton needs, it's nice to not have your defenseman getting crushed every time they go back to get the puck.
Yeah.
You need somebody, and I don't want to say like Francouz because he's not, we need more than that. But you need a goalie that's steady, that's going to make the saves that they have to make one or two that you shouldn't make, but never let in that 1 or 2 at the wrong time of the game, in the wrong game, that should never go in the net. And Edmonton fought that, and it took them till the 3rd round to make that kind of be part of their undoing. But they did that in both rounds in at least 3 games in every one of those series.
Well, and I think I said at the beginning, before the series started, the team that wins this is going to be the team that gets that one save that they need, and that's what Colorado was getting, and the Edmonton wasn't.
Yeah.
So it comes down to that every year in the playoffs. Your goaltending can steal you series, and Edmonton didn't even need that. They just needed consistent make the save. Like don't let them in 5-hole where it was so bad that nobody even knew it was in. Nobody even expected to be in. Not even the guy that shot the puck.
Comfer was looking for the puck. He was looking for the rebound. He had no idea that went in.
Yeah.
No.
He wasn't even shooting it to score. He was just shooting to put it on the net and go for a rebound.
Yeah, it was bad.
It's like, I'll let it in.
So what about a guy like do you look at Ville Husso? Because I don't know if St. Louis will be able to sign him. Darcy Kemper's going to be a UFA again. I don't like his injury history. That scares me with Kemper because then you're stuck with Skinner and whoever else we have, right? So, and Tyler, what's your level of comfort? Because Bruce and I talked about this earlier. What's your level of comfort with a guy like Skinner getting, say, 40 or 50 starts next season?
I'd like him to be at like 30. I'd like him to be. The ideal scenario is you come into the season and there's no question, he's the backup. And every game beyond what you would expect a backup to play is a bonus. And it's a positive for him because he's not expected to do it. Nobody's expecting any more from him than that. But they need an actual number 1 coming into the season. It's been 3 off seasons in a row that they've looked for a goalie and did nothing about it. And even this season, like how much were they talking about? Like even Ken Holland came out and said publicly, we are looking for a goalie.
Mm-hmm.
That's how bad it was. You can't do that again. Like they got lucky that Smith
got hot.
Whatever was wrong with him got hot and was able to kind of slog his way through the season because I mean it wasn't smooth. None of it was, and that's what a team needs is somebody that you can just count on.
So is there a goaltender in your mind, Tyler, they should be targeting here in the offseason?
Like, I don't like Binnington, and I don't like that contract. I don't like the term. I don't like the value of it.
Don't like his attitude.
I don't like his attitude. I think he's a crybaby. But, like, that's a guy that you have to look at. Because nobody else is going to give you a goalie. I think if Driedger wasn't injured, you could probably do something there with Seattle with two guys.
What about Vanacek or Samsonov out in Washington?
Yeah, that's your other thing because they have to make an option. Like, they have to decide between one of the two.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they never rolled out with either one of those confidently. So is that something that you want to do? I think the obvious one that's probably going to end up happening is Georgiev in New York. He's wanted out for a long time, and I mean, you're not going to get any more starts behind Shesterkin, so I think that's the guy, and they try and do Cam Talbot 2.0, and hopefully they don't ship him off for nothing after one bad season.
Well, hey, so you mentioned Cam Talbot. He's a UFA this year too, is he not? Or does he have one more season left?
He's got one more season.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think that they keep Talbot because he's got a reasonable contract, and Fleury looks elsewhere. I mean, maybe Fleury's an option, but even then, you're still looking. That's 1 year. I don't think after that, you're just gonna be like, okay, well, Fleury's gone now. Skinner, you're the guy. So.
Yeah. No, they need. I've been saying it too. They need a guy who is kind of in the same age bracket as the rest of their core and can stick around for 5, 6, 7 years, right? Like. And maybe Skinner's your guy like in a year or two, but he's not that guy next year.
Well, look at like the last 10 Stanley Cup winners. Where was their goalie from? He was drafted and developed by the team. So I mean, you can go and sign whoever, but it doesn't mean that you're going to win. And it obviously has shown proof that doesn't actually work. So, which
further pissed me off last draft when the Oilers. I mean. Xavier Bourgault looks fantastic now, but you know what? They passed on
another 5'6" dude.
Sure, but they passed on Wallstead and they passed on Sebastian Cossa. Why didn't you draft one of those guys and have that be the goaltender of the future? I just do not understand the logic last draft.
Yeah, I mean, Cossa was gone, I think, by the time they drafted, but still,
Wallstead was there. Yeah,
it's. When was the last time you had two goalies that were top 20? In the first round, and for top 20 by like everybody, who looks at drafts, and to skip over them and just take a small scoring forward, you can get those. You can sign those. You can pull them out of college. You can get them in the second round, and I think Bourgault is going to be a good player. I think he'll be Yamamoto, but able to finish. But. I mean, you see it. You see it with Edmonton. You see it with every other team. You need a goalie.
Yeah.
And you don't really sign those guys.
Got to draft them.
Yeah.
All right.
All worked up here.
What else do we got here from Game 4? So I didn't like the McKinnon play. So I was telling these. I was fired up earlier. Not a fan of Nate McKinnon. I saw a lot of garbage from him during that series in the Western Conference Final. He's a bit of a crybaby. He pulled some shady shit. The Hyman thing particularly pissed me off because you watch that thing again. There's no attempt to play the puck. There's no attempt to play the man. He's targeting a knee, and Hyman's lucky it hit his quad and not his actual knee. So that's another guy I could have put on the list this week.
He's trying to get a piece, and on purpose, and just a small piece, not a full body check, just a piece. He's a good enough skater that he could have stopped on a dime and hit square.
Yeah.
And he decided not to. That and the slew foot.
Oh, and that too. Yep.
I mean, it wasn't. He didn't.
I know he didn't throw his arm over him. Yeah, but
it wasn't your typical like cranking back. But he's a smart guy. Like he knows what he's doing.
Yep.
And you know where you are on the ice, and you know who you're doing it to. Hyman's had how many goals in the series? Draisaitl is Draisaitl. You don't see him doing that against Archibald or Derek Ryan. So
no, he knew exactly what he was doing. And anyone who says different is either biased the other way or has never played a game of hockey in their life.
Yep.
So speaking of Draisaitl, guy's an absolute stud. He's a warrior. John, we're going to fight about that till the day we both die. But if this playoff run didn't change John's mind on Leon Draisaitl, absolutely nothing will, because the guy played on one leg. He had, and we don't know what else was wrong with him too. I actually thought, if you're reading lips, and I mentioned this in the live stream earlier, Bruce, it looked like he said my back too. So I don't know if he tweaked something or what, but he was in obvious pain in Game 4, and he got it out. And what do you have? 4 primary assists?
Yeah.
In the game.
4
in the game.
assists.
In the game.
One game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think too, when your ankle's that screwed up, like everything going all the way back up is also messed up. So it doesn't take much to tweak your back, but
It's all out of alignment.
I don't ever want to agree with John ever. It'll be the last thing I ever want to do. But, and I think I've said this before, I do get if you're a casual viewer, even if you're a fan, and you watch, like, he does look lazy. He looks like
Sure.
the back check. He looks like he hunches back over. It's slow. Look at his stats. you like, it bothers me even sometimes when you watch a game and it's like, oh, you could have taken one more step. You could have taken one more step and turn that back over. Look at his stats. You have no right to even.
You can't argue with
about
him.
You can't.
No, you can't. I mean, I said to Bruce earlier, he's truly the German Gretzky, right? Because he posted 7 3-point games during the postseason. Only Gretzky had done that more, right? Once in 87-88 with 8 games of 3 points, and once in 84-85 with 9. Nobody else has done it. Like, that's incredible. Like,
look at his playoff numbers.
Yeah.
He's got to be well over a point per game. He's been in the playoffs, what, three times? 4 times?
Yeah, I haven't looked at his overall career. Like, this postseason, he was over 2 points a game, right? But he's for sure. He's over 1.5 points, I'm sure of it, in his 3 postseason runs. So he shows up for the playoffs. Like, against Anaheim, right? When he took over that series. Should have fucking won that one too. I'm still bitter about it, but
Kessler.
Anyway. Okay, yeah. And then we got to give a little bit of credit to Cale Makar. Obviously, we've been pumping his tires lots, but 1 goal, 4 assists, 4 shots on goal, 6 shot attempts, and 2 scoring chances in that game last night. That puck had seeing eyes. Like, for him to get that through, and he placed it perfectly.
You know what he was doing the whole time? He had his head up the whole time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Just an incredible hockey player. Even I can admit that and just appreciate it. He's probably like the single reason I would actually cheer for Colorado to win the Cup, is just because he's a player that deserves it.
And I won't, because he's 23 and he's going to be there another 5, 6, 7 times.
So that's fine.
That's fine.
Credit to Lehkonen, who had a big game. Obviously had the game winner in overtime, but he also had 2 assists and six shots on goal, 6 shot attempts, 5 scoring chances, 4. So he was good. So I had a few questions here, just some general discussion stuff. Bruce, will start with you. Do the Colorado Avalanche win the Stanley Cup? They're now the favorites at -225. We've got the Rangers next at +400 and Tampa at +500.
I'm still going with Tampa. I think Vasilevsky is going to be the difference.
Okay, hard to argue with that. I'm going to check the numbers here again, because that was actually before they had won that game. So I'm going to go and check these again here. So Colorado's -220. Tampa's actually now +350, and the Rangers are +600. So Tampa's creeping up after tying up that series, obviously. Tyler, what's your take on it?
If Tampa gets through this round, I think it's still Tampa. A team that knows how to do it, a team that can play a tight game, plus the goaltending. Like, the goaltending matchup is not even close. Like, there's 5 check marks beside Tampa and nothing beside Colorado.
Yeah, that's exactly.
And they've done it before. They can play any game you want. If you want to score goals, Tampa will do that too.
Sure.
I think Colorado's just kind of trying to skate around as fast as they can all over the place, and Tampa will let them, because they've seen all of it.
Yeah.
If it's New York, then I think Colorado does it pretty easy.
Yeah,
Even if they still have Shesterkin and the goaltending matchup. New York's young, and I don't think they're as hungry as Colorado is.
They're not as deep either, right? Like, yeah, I would agree with that assessment for sure. My other question, well, I got a few here actually. So is Mike Smith going to retire? I think we kind of covered that one already. Was this a successful season for the Edmonton Oilers, in your opinion? Bruce, I'll start with you.
Absolutely. I think it was. They made some big strides this year. They've figured out now what they need to do to win. It took a long losing streak and a coaching change, but I think they figured out what they need to do to win and what they are going to have to do if they want to continue winning. Their offseason is going to be entertaining because they're going to have to make some pretty tough decisions here, I think, on some players. But overall, I think it's a big step for this team.
I agree. And the reason I asked that question is because Connor McDavid, in his post-game news conference and then again today in his exit interview, basically called it a small step forward. Like, we all know he's disappointed. We all know Connor's not happy with the way things ended here. But I think as a fan, as an observer, this team had a big season, I think, based on expectations and based on where they finished up. So that's my take on it. Tyler, what about you?
I would say the same thing. I think the biggest part of all of it is when McDavid and Draisaitl can sit there right after a loss and say to the media that this is just a step. This sucks, but we understand that this is a step. Look at what Colorado was. They've been knocking on the door. They're there now. We have to do that next year. We didn't hear that in 2016-17. I mean, you obviously don't get a chance to say that when you don't make the playoffs. So, but just saying that from the leadership of the team, that's big. That's why I'm really not worried for next year. I don't think you're going to have another, what was it, like 0-2-15 stretch.
Yeah, they were 11. I think it was 0-11-2 is what there was in the 13 games. Yeah,
you're probably not going to have another one of those, and you're probably going to have a more consistent goaltender, which is going to do a ton for this entire team, and just the way that they play, because you can play more wide open.
Yeah,
and you don't have to think about it, especially for the way Edmonton wants to play.
A key for me is going to be signing Jay Woodcroft. They got to get that guy signed to a 3 or a 5 year deal or something, right? Like, he's been a key piece for them, obviously. And then part of that discussion here. So we want Evander Kane to return. I think we're all the consensus here. But do you guys think he's going to return? And where are you drafting him in fantasy hockey drafts next year?
Pretty high, I think.
Like, is he a top 2 or 3 round pick? Like, he's going to play with McDavid again, and he could be a 50 goal scorer.
I still think he'll probably be like a really good 4th round pick. Like, you'll be really happy there.
Oh yeah,
5th, somewhere in there.
It's going to depend on the person that drafts him, because the person, whether they want to take into account his off ice issues. So if they're hung up on the off ice issues, they may not take him at all. They'll just let someone else take him. But I think if you want to win your draft and he resigns, you got it. The numbers are going to be there, and you got, like you said, 3rd, 4th round is probably a right spot for him.
Goals, power play goals, hits, penalties.
Yeah.
Shots. Like, he's a shots monster.
Yeah.
I would feel. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, what else? Other than being McDavid or Draisaitl, what else do you want for fantasy?
The only thing I would like more of from Kane is power play time, because he's typically been on power play 2. Like, they've had Hyman on power play 1 quite often, which is fine. I mean, I'm not saying either way. It's just that's one thing I'd like to see more of, but probably won't get. I think it could go as high as the 2nd round in the right format, right? If it's a bangers league, I could see someone taking him in the 2nd round. Again, depending on how deep that league is, but wouldn't surprise me. So I guess if we're handicapping it, what are the odds he comes back?
Do you want a percentage?
Give me a percentage, yeah.
I think it's 80%.
Okay.
I think
Bruce?
would be a safe number.
I'm thinking more like 60-40. I think a lot of it's going to depend on what happens with that whole thing with the San Jose.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it will depend on that.
Oh, it's going to hinge on that for sure. I know Pierre LeBrun put it out there 60-40 that he was not going to return. That was what Pierre LeBrun said. And listening to Kane today, I think he's just saying, look, there's a lot of things that have to fall into place. And I think he's just waiting on the arbitrator's ruling, like you had mentioned earlier, Tyler. like by all discussion, by all comments from him, it sounds like he loved his time here. He liked it more than he expected to, and I mean I'd probably fall somewhere in that 70% range, maybe 80, like you said, Tyler. He's such a good fit here, right? And for him, if he wants to win and if he likes the fit, why wouldn't you come back, right?
You can't complain about the fit.
No,
I think the problem with it is like he is kind of a bonehead. He doesn't really make good decisions. Like we all know that. Everybody knows that. He probably knows that. So you never know. Like we all think that it's a really good fit. I think anybody that watched the team, I think if you're a player and you're going to get paid $4 million in 32 different places.
Yeah.
And one of them is with McDavid and Draisaitl on a team now that went to the conference final that people are going to expect to go at least 2 rounds. And if not, that's a disappointment.
Yeah.
And that's expected.
Yeah.
Like, why would you want to play anywhere else? But given everything that's happened to him, if you can make $1 million or $2 million or $2 million more somewhere else, that could be good, should make the playoffs. Maybe the taxes are a little bit different. I think he could look at it, given everything that's happened and the fact that he is kind of a bonehead, and he should probably just play in Edmonton because it's a good fit for everybody.
Remains to be seen. So, okay, good stuff there. And then along the same lines, who would be your priority to sign this offseason? So you got to pick 2 of these 3 players. Bruce, I'm going to start with you. So Kyler Yamamoto, Ryan McLeod, Jesse Puljujarvi. You have to sign 2 of the 3. Who's your priority?
Oh, boy. Well, McLeod for sure.
Yep.
No doubt about that. And then is it Yamo or is it Jesse? And for me, I would probably lean a little more towards Yamo myself.
I'm with you, Bruce.
Puljujarvi's bailed once already on Edmonton, so I would lean a little more towards Yamo myself.
I think for me, I agree. I think Ryan McLeod and Kyler Yamamoto. I like a lot of things that Puljujarvi does, but we haven't seen enough finish from him, honestly, honestly, and I don't know if that's going to change. Enough finish, yeah, okay. I just don't know if it's going to change, right? So he could be a really effective third-line winger, like we saw that line with McLeod and with Foegele. They played really well. The eye test, the metrics all looked really good, but he just never seems to finish. He's a player for me that lately he's just left us wanting more. I know he had a good season. I just don't know. If he wants to come back for less than he made this year, by all means, let's bring him back. But I don't know if his agent's going to allow that. So for me, if I had to focus on 2, it would be Yamamoto and McLeod. I really like Yamo's give a shit meter, and he's hard on the forecheck. He can penalty kill. He does have a bit of finish, right, Tyler? We've seen that at times from him.
Takes a lot
I think he just needs to shoot more.
Yeah. Yeah, and he made a point of trying to do that. You've seen it early in the season because he was focused on it on the offseason.
Yep.
And then he kind of got away from it and tried to distribute the puck all the time, even when he shouldn't, and ended up turning the puck over. He does take a lot of offensive zone penalties, which is frustrating.
But half the time, right or wrong, Tyler, he seems to take a lot of soft calls in the offensive zone.
Which is surprising given his size, too.
Right. So I look at this, I'm like, this is horseshit. Half the time, I'm just like, that's a bad call, and Yamo always seems to get those.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if there's any stat to show that, but I've seen that when I watch games.
Yeah.
But I still think you guys are right. It is McLeod and Yamamoto. I think, I don't know if you guys seen this. I think it was today or yesterday. There was a report that the leadership group had specifically went out to Jesse and told him to be more engaged.
Yeah. And
I think if you ever have to tell somebody that in the conference final, that's an issue. He just kind of skates around. He is irritating. He gets his stick into places. He can turn pucks over. But he just kind of skates around aimlessly, bumps into people, kind of runs into them.
Yeah.
And then changes. And that's all that really happens.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll turn a puck over. Maybe he'll keep a play alive. But nothing beyond that happens. And Yamamoto wants to be here. McLeod does. Puljujarvi's already left once. And, how much do you pay somebody that can get their stick in the way, skate around fast and run into people and change? Yeah. You can get lots of people to do that, and maybe you can get one that can kill penalties too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I looked at it too, and Puljujarvi wasn't he wasn't playing physical. Like, I totally agree with that assessment, Tyler. There was times where he went out of his way not to hit somebody.
Yeah, and even if he did finish somebody, it was like this kind of like structured play where, okay, I have to run into him because I don't want to stop, and I'm going to bump into him, and then I'm going to now go.
Yeah.
It wasn't like actually trying to fight for a puck. It was, okay,
I'm finishing my check because someone told me I have to.
Yeah, I'm going in this line. He's in the way. I'm going to run into him. Then I'm going to go over here, and then I'm going to change.
Yamamoto doesn't care who he's hitting. Doesn't care how big the guy is, how small he is. The guy's a heat-seeking missile, and he's just going to roll. And I like a lot of his game. There's some things you can change, but he's a guy too who can play top 6, or he can play in the bottom 6 if he has to, right? Like he's versatile, I think. So that's my assessment on it anyway. We could probably yak Oilers all night, but we should maybe not do that because we've already been rolling for an hour and 10 minutes here. So yeah, I think we'll leave it at that. One other thing I wanted to mention really quick. The Derek Ryan call, super soft.
Oh, God.
Like, I don't know what that was with 5 minutes left in the third period in an elimination game. Are you kidding me?
Was that not shortly after the knee-on-knee?
Yeah, it was.
And then you go down the ice, and 3 guys, 2 Colorado players, 1 Oiler, Derek Ryan, who's a tiny human, gets in between both of them.
Rantanen and who else was there? I don't know who it was.
Rantanen, who's what, 6'3", 6'4",
6'5".
gets in between both of them, and 2 of the 3 go down, and Edmonton gets a penalty.
They called it a trip. It was total horseshit. The whole thing was just...
That's a battle for a puck where 3 guys are tied up. If anything, Rantanen's getting interference because he didn't even have the puck on his stick.
Or coincidentals. Send them both off.
Yeah.
But you can't make that call with 5 minutes in an elimination game. Like, it was just a terrible, terrible call. And they score on the power play, right? So it's like, so then Colorado goes up. And could you imagine if Cassian didn't score, the backlash you would have had online? Not that they care. The NHL doesn't seem to care.
Yeah.
But no. Brutal. Just a brutal call.
Do you know what the best part of all of that is? Those are your best group of officials. This is your top 4 group of officials in the entire league officiating that game.
Eek.
And they were shit.
That is the best the NHL has to offer, boys.
Here they are.
Oh, and like I said in the stream, it was a Derek Ryan sandwich, and somehow he got the penalty out of that. Like, it
was brutal.
How does the cream filling get a penalty?
Exactly, right? Like, he's being propped up by 2 Colorado players. The one guy goes and they all fall down. It's like, how the heck is he getting a penalty for doing that?
It's terrible. You could make an entire podcast every night about officiating in the NHL. It's that frustrating.
You could bring Tim Peel on.
Yeah, no, thank you. On all sides of it, though, it's not just against Edmonton. It would that was a specific one that was terrible, but they're all over the place. Yeah. And it was almost in this round too, specifically against Edmonton. The amount of power plays for and against. Part of it's obviously that Colorado's a better team. They were faster, they're quicker. You draw more penalties when you're that much faster and quicker than the other team.
Yeah.
But there was a lot that was missed or just miscalled.
Agreed. Totally. And you could see like the discrepancy in the 2 teams and how many penalties they had. It was pretty obvious, right?
Yeah, it was. Very.
But all right, I think we've probably rolled long enough here, guys. Before we head out, though, I just want to tell our listeners quickly about Amazon.ca. This episode was brought to you in part by Amazon.ca. New Amazon Music Unlimited subscribers will receive access to a 6-month subscription to Disney Plus. Users that sign up for an Amazon Music Unlimited subscription starting at $7.99 per month for Prime members and $9.99 for non-Prime members get access for 6 months. Disney Plus renews automatically. New subscribers only. Terms and conditions apply. Listen, guys, we do this because we love it, but if you do want to support the show, please use our affiliate links in the description on our website. Doesn't cost you anything additional. It just helps incentivize us a little bit and pay for some of our time. So we would appreciate that. Ask the Hacks, still here. So if you're interested, if you have fantasy hockey questions or DFS questions, send them in. Get entered to win a free 1-year subscription to the Left Wing Luck iPhone app, which Tyler and I love. We've used lots. it's a big help during the fantasy season. So definitely check that out. And then I was talking to Mike earlier. We're going to try and get him on next week. I think it's been a while since we've had him on. So if you're new to the show, Mike McLaughlin from Left Wing Lock will potentially be joining us next Monday. With that, guys, thanks. It was a lot of fun. Enjoyed the hockey talk tonight. We'll see you guys next week. I guess for anyone, if you don't follow us already, check us out on Twitter at FHHacks, on Instagram at Fantasy Hockey Hacks, and be sure to visit our website, fantasyhockeyhacks.com. And then, Bruce, you and I were doing our live streams weekdays during the playoffs. I think we're going to go to every other day now, at least until probably for the remainder of the playoffs, because we're going to have one series to work with. So be sure to check those out during the weekday. All right, boys. We'll talk to you later.
Good night.
See you guys.
Take care.